Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is really about sort of harboring anger or resentment, especially as a result of a covert narcissist relationship where someone who is really sort of done you wrong, sort of, snuck one under your nose, was caught with their, hand in the cookie jar and, thought that they could get away with it. In other words, you sort of feel down and out or played for a fool. And this is a natural response to a relationship where you have been taken advantage of and disrespected. This is a natural autonomic response, just as as breathing, just as if, when you get, go to the doctor and they hit you under the knee and you get that reflex. It's a natural, inborn, wired reflex for you to feel this way. So I want people to understand that feeling these sort of, feelings and how to, move through them, I think is the big question. I mean, that's the $1,000,000 question. And so the answer, we like to give a lot of answers here and a lot of explore things here at Peace and Harmony. And it's to really understand that, they have done you wrong. They did, quote unquote, maybe think that you wouldn't notice, that they could slip this by you, as if you would just develop a tolerance for this type of behavior and just be starved out, starved out emotionally, starved out financially, starved out physically, starved out psychologically and spiritually, as if you wouldn't notice, as if you wouldn't react, as if you weren't alive, as if you weren't a human being, as if you weren't a person, and just there. I mean, this is natural, normal, your reaction. And so a lot of people do oftentimes have it fueled with a lot of anger or resentment, and then they have a tendency to want to then punish the people who have done them wrong. I'll say that again. They want to punish the people who have done them wrong. The people who needed excessive admiration. The people who didn't attend to you or did not resonate or connect with you on the emotional or spiritual level. Oftentimes what people feel is very colossal and also almost like a karmic flaw in their life. I mean, so the impact is vast. The impact is global, I would say, throughout the resonant layers of the being of the individual. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically. And what's really important is because I feel that during those crucial years of the relationship, so I think we have a lot of viewers who have experienced this, during their early life. Maybe they're within their family. So your truth is developed through your first 7 years, 0 through 7. Your brain is not developed. I mean, you gotta love it, right? I mean, you got a bird out there that was born, 4 days ago, and it already knows how to find its own food. I mean, human beings, you got 7 years. You're not even close to surviving on your own. I mean, you got eons, from there. And so you have to understand that the brain development also mirrors and is not fully grown or developed. I mean, it's really a miracle when you start thinking about these things. But for your own practical purposes is to understand that oftentimes people's truth is created and then used as a sort of what I would say a comparison point or a constant mirroring and judge that things just sort of bounce off of. In other words, what you compare it against and whether you refuse it because, it would contradict your truth. So if you, during that first 7 years or during formative years of your, relationship, maybe you were married to this person and you really grew into a family and, and so you share a lot of common growth and a lot of sort of common wood, so to speak, and you then branch off and then branch off. So you've got some roots and connection that are grounded, like that keep you from moving or changing. I mean, it's rooted in your life. It's anchored in your life. It's that real. And it's, it's oftentimes fated, by the divine plan. But it's to also understand that during those early years and during a lot of the subconscious, your brain goes into a theta wave pattern where it's more just listening, it's more recording, and it is not just sort of acting on. So a lot of people who have been in that, mode, either, where you developed your truth during that time and then you were done wrong. And then so part of your truth is, I am done wrong. And then so this is your truth, and then you're speaking your truth, and all you're repeating over and over and over again is, I am done wrong. I am done wrong. I am done. I mean, it becomes like a rally cry for people who don't correct that truth that they have been conditioned and programmed to listen to, have in their hearts, have in their bowels, have in their toenails, have in the hair follicles, wherever it is. A lot of people have that running through their sort of, feeling and emotional body. They've got that all going down in their core. So, then if people then always feel this way, then they will only then sort of become an energetic match which connects like two pieces with that truth. So if it matches up with that truth, I am done wrong. Oh, here I come. Let me go to the job. Let me go to the relationship that does me wrong. Let me go to the school that does me wrong. Let me find the best friend that does me wrong. Let me find the restaurant that does me wrong. I mean, it becomes a pattern. It becomes a broadcast signature, if you will. It becomes an imprint. Have you ever seen ducks? I remember back in the day being like 6 years old and seeing like the duck, a mother or father duck then lead with their 6 or 7 babies. They had like a big group, and that is called imprinting. In psychology, when you have the young ones who have a role model, the big duck, and they're just like all in line. It's just so cool. That is their instinct. I always still get a quick kick out of it when I see that, like when I go out on my walks, and we have a lot of the Canadian geese, and they have their babies in the spring, and then you'll see the mother and the father, and sometimes the mother, coolest thing, I saw her tuck like 3 of these little babies under her wing, like up in the wing, like really in there. It was really remarkable. I mean, they must have only been maybe a couple hours old or a couple days old. It was like really phenomenal. And then her wing would be like big and hanging over. And I kind of would go for a similar walk, and I would see their family grow, and like how, and I think they kind of lost one along the way, and then they were swimming, but there's that imprinting. So your truth is kind of like what is your role model and what you're following, and that becomes like your instinct, if you will. It becomes your truth, which you have learned on this earth plane. You did not come into existence with this feeling, with this vibe, with this essence, with this programming, with this personality. It's you're not born to be unhappy. I mean, that is not the divine plan. That is not God's work. That's not how it's supposed to be. That's not why people exist, to be, you don't live to be unhappy. But if you've routinely rehearsed and rememorized this feeling, then a lot of people will just automatically re-drill this into themselves, and they'll make this their truth, and it becomes very, not only resistive to change, but they will oftentimes then push away situations and experiences that would contradict this truth. So if someone has done me wrong, then if you then meet somebody or want to do something that would do you right, then oftentimes then it does not feel comfortable. It feels like this isn't me, even though I want it to be. But you can grow in that direction. There's been all sorts of studies that talk about, I have people who ask about the covert narcissist and this feeling of, connection, and how people then are stuck because they've sort of been done wrong. And people get upset because the covert narcissist has done them wrong, and they do people wrong. And I think, people ask, does the covert narcissist sort of know that they do people wrong? And I would say, unequivocally, they feel that it's not their place to go above and beyond. It's not their place to what you might feel is, meeting you halfway. They believe that they're sort of superior and only, need to relate to superior people. So they kind of get themselves off the hook and feel like, well, I don't have to relate to you because you're not as quote unquote superior to me. That's kind of their mindset. And I remember also meeting several people in my high school who were really great prodigies. Particularly really great unique friend who I feel was a childhood prodigy of like music. I mean, can just walk up to the grand piano and just play incredibly beautiful, rich chords, music, refrains, whatever you call them, and it's just like by ear. And I think he listened to his sister trying to practice, and she was just learning the sheet music, and then he picked it up by ear, and he could just play the piano. He could then just play the guitar, play the keyboards, play the drums, play this, really ultra creative and really sort of genius. I mean, a musical genius, if you will. And I always wondered, if you were of that level, then how maybe other people, how they would perceive others, just like people who are great mathematicians or your Einsteins or your Teslas or your people who are, how it just because they, your Edisons, people who are great inventors doesn't mean that they have, or of great talent doesn't mean, it's not a given that they automatically look down or feel that they're superior to others. I mean, oftentimes people with great genius can be quite humble, but the problem with the covert narcissist is that ain't the case. They oftentimes only feel that they have really a need to associate to the people who are going to get them somewhere or be at their level or higher. So when other things come clamoring, it's kind of like the it just kind of reminds me of the dynamic. Have you ever heard those stories of the Make-A-Wish Foundation or the kids who have waited outside an elevator? Maybe the kids were sick, and so they got a special chance to meet a football player or meet a rugby player or soccer player or musician or something, and they want to just get their autograph, and the person just doesn't even care about their fans and just kind of get away kid. People kind of feel that way, I think, around the covert narcissist. You look up to them, you admire them, you appreciate them because you love them, you care, you're a caring person. And so to not have that returned, then you get a little in the engine that says, nope, something is wrong here, and so it doesn't process as you are loved. There is something in the cycle where it kind of it just defaults to, I would say it becomes like, I'm unlovable. I mean, that's part of that circuitry that happens when the covert narcissist sort of resorts to that sort of behavior. They feel, I mean, that's just part of their mode. They feel superior. But that is not always a good trait. Yeah, if you say, well, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, that can be a redeeming quality. You're trying to get a job or what have you. But it doesn't mean that you are not a team player, that you don't give credit where credit is due. You don't have conversations. You don't acknowledge people. You don't engage. You don't live in a vacuum. So sometimes they will sort of belittle others and then make people feel insignificant. So people oftentimes then have an anxiety with feeling this sort of existential loss. I would say it ultimately becomes sort of existential. And why I'm saying that word, I do not know, but it is sort of an existential, I would say oftentimes not able to be solved. I'm just going to pull it up here real quick, just because I need to know, and you need to know, and I apologize, the hair is wet. Okay, existential. So it becomes existential, which is basically relating to your existence. Oh, wow. If it doesn't get any bigger than that, I don't know what does. You know? And affirming your existence. So it comes from the late Latin existentialis, meaning from existence. So the word has sort of metamorphosized and has a history. So it calls into question your existence. So then people have all these existential questions, meaning they're questioning why they exist or these things. In other words, they're like really caught up and it becomes like a crisis. Sometimes the narcissist will freak out like they're having an existential crisis when they're really just putting on a show, but, or they're just trying to get, attention. So they're big attention seekers. So they are seeking attention, but they do not give attention. They are seeking attention, but they do not want to give attention. To them, it's like to admit that they're interested. It seems, and then, so for them to admit that, for some reason, they're just not comfortable. They have a problem. They have an issue. They have an exaggerated sense of self-importance. This is just how it is. It is what it is. So, I mean, what do you have to call a turnip a turnip or whatever, it is what it is. So I think part of the existential problem then becomes they have a need then to feel that they then have to punish or somehow create an energetic match and engage in this more of a emotional tennis battle with them in order to sort of punish or feel that they have to punish those people who have done them wrong. And so they constantly feel that they're in this mode, and then they will then sort of push away anything that does not match that same situation. And so they end up punishing themselves and, and just sort of trying to get back and relay the message that the other person screwed up, and so it's just like, how do they, it becomes a problem. It becomes a communication issue, but more so a real deep self-communication issue. So you have to be willing to let go the need to punish others for those who you feel have done you wrong, and try to, realize that to continue to process and harbor the anger is like you're still trying to figure out ways to punish them or express your anger to them, but it becomes it sort of goes into a never-ending abyss where you're not having a two-way communication with them. Like a viewer so aptly stated just a few moments ago, it's like a dead end. In other words, it's not going to go anywhere. You're not going to see it bloom, blossom, grow, because they're not willing to come down to size. Yeah, if a genius is a genius, I mean, awesome, but oftentimes the covert narcissist just sort of feels that they have to be very guarded in the attention that they give to others, as if it's going to take away from them. And so, it's people, I think, experience a real deprivation of attention, and so don't then know how to attend to their own needs because it's like the role model back, in other words, they keep trying to support this covert narcissist, and that becomes like their role model. But then the role model that they're following becomes one that they want to punish or somehow express a lot of anger to, or unfairness and justness, when that's just who they are. So if you can kind of let them off the hook and know that that's just who they are, and God love them the way that they are. They have a lot of redeeming qualities. Perhaps you've had positive experiences. Maybe you can't find any. If you can't, I think that, my personal opinion, if you can't give up the need to judge, you're causing yourself a lot of extra stress. This is, and a lot of that judging can be then oftentimes sort of instilled in you by the covert narcissist. So you judge yourself rigorously. And then people then go to the flip side, and they can't be around anything that's off or anything that's not perfect or up to their standards. And it's okay to have your own standards and to know that you're a loving person and you're caring in a different way, oftentimes it's not an energetic match to someone who can't give you that in return. So, oftentimes, and they have that unwillingness and inability to recognize the needs and feelings of others. They just, it's irrelevant. It's just not, it's a non-issue. It's a non-non. It's a non-known. It's just, they just have an unwillingness. They just don't feel, it's kind of like, it's like the old joke, you're going to someone in there, you're trying to find something in a store, and then you go to someone and, do you know where this is? Oh, that's not my job, even though they're right there, or something like, it's just kind of like that. They just feel like it's not my place, it's not my job, that's not my problem, that doesn't have anything to do with me, so they just sort of don't feel a need or an obligation. And to the contrary, then they can just sort of be very arrogant or sort of haughty and just sort of taking it all in, and that's just who they are. So it is what it is, but I think that's probably why, a little bit of why it's important to understand, these traits of the narcissist, and then how people then digest and process and leave that impact. That if you're still trying to, live in that judgment and right the wrong, you're going to always be in that mode. So it's important to let that go. You really think about that. Listen to this several times and see if you can give up that battle, because then it'll release you and allow you to be the way that you are. Once again, it's that big existential question that oftentimes, you find yourself coming into, into a place with, once you've been in a relationship with someone who has been, abusive and taking advantage of you in these sort of very covert and sort of stealth-like and undetectable ways, and you sort of don't realize it until many years or many decades later. You are strong. You're seeing and feeling the truth. So be willing to have the courage just to, allow yourself that existential existence that's okay and safe, and to stop calling your own existence into question. Have a beautiful evening. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out, peace be with you, and have a beautiful evening.